Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hi, this is The Author Show, and I'm your host, Linda Thompson. A couple of years ago, I interviewed author Beverly Gandara. I'm privileged to interview her again today while she shares her latest book, Soaring in Silence, One Woman's Triumph Over Fear with us. Beverly, welcome back to The Author Show.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Beverly, will you please give us a quick overview of Soaring in Silence?
About a recently handicapped young married woman who, by her own resourcefulness and the wonders of the Internet, overcomes her struggle with a dangerous retiree with a criminal past. He's stalking her, and she's looking for peace. She and her husband actually moved to Arizona for the peace, the beauty, and to regain her health. And instead, she is stalked by this older gentleman. And she has to overcome that because she tells people about it and they don't believe her. They pretty much say, oh, he's an old guy. Old people aren't dangerous. And that's the crux of this book. Anybody who is a bully at any age is dangerous.
That's right. So the story in Soaring in Silence is a bit unsettling. What served as the inspiration for your story?
I had a couple of friends who have both been abused differently. They had no outlet, no groups, and I thought they needed a voice. And I cover some of that in the story, but I use myself and my husband as characters to tell their story, essentially. And I think it's important for women, particularly, to learn how to take care of themselves and what to do in these situations that are scary and are troubling. So I give resources at the end of the book.
Well, I absolutely agree that we need to know a little bit more about how to protect ourselves. Bev, who do you believe would be the ideal reader of Soaring in Silence?
I think any woman. I'd say from the age of 16 on. It's not a child's book, but any woman who has ever faced any kind of fear from the opposite sex or the same sex would be interested in this story and try to learn how to take care of themselves. I think men are interested too. They need to know how to handle difficult people. And this man is a bully, and we've all been bullied. I think my audience is vast. Anybody over 16.
Kim has been diagnosed with a terminal illness that I can't even pronounce. Is this an actual disease? And if so, what is it?
It is an actual disease. It's a form of vasculitis. It's called Takayasu's arteritis, and that is something that I have. And that's another thing that I wanted to give voice to. It's one of those rare diseases. People haven't heard of it, and unless a celebrity is behind it and has it, it doesn't have a lot of traction for funding for research. So I used that in the book. I'm old for the disease. When I was first diagnosed, it was supposedly terminal, but there are people that could live quite long with this disease and do quite well, and I'm one of them.
Well, congratulations on that, and thank you for bringing awareness to the forefront of it. So tell me, Kim is determined to beat the odds. How does her husband, Brad, react to the diagnosis?
He's terrified. He's very nervous. They're changing their lives. They're moving to a new state. He wants to begin his own business, and he does that. But he's under pressure. He doesn't know what's going to happen with her. He is starting a new business. He's tense. She wants to protect him during this situation, which is why she tends to keep this stalking situation to herself.
Why doesn't anyone take Kim seriously when she talks about her stalker?
Because the stalker has not put anything in writing. He hasn't actually touched her. He just threatens her. And people tend to not take elderly people seriously. And the man who is stalking her is well into his 70s. So when she goes to the people in the development where she lives, they kind of say, well, he's an old man, he's retired, he couldn't possibly do anything anyway. And she knows differently. She's afraid of him, and with good reason. He's dangerous.
You set Soaring in Silence in the early days of the Internet, and Kim uses that new resource to fight a sexual predator's advances. How did she learn of the tools of the Internet and how they offered help to help her reach her goal?
In the beginning of the Internet, it all happened while her husband was beginning to start his business, and she thought the Internet would be a viable resource for him to do that. And since she was fairly much homebound, that gave her an opportunity to help her husband. So she was learning the Internet, and this is back in the 90s when it just began. And it was actually through the Internet that she sees an article about a gang, so to speak, and she discovers the man who is stalking her is obviously living under a different name. And that's how she helps to save herself.
Are your characters figments of your imagination, or do you model them after real people?
Well, the incident did not happen to me. It did happen to someone else, but I used my husband and my life a little bit as the characters, and then I absorbed the other story. So it's fictionalized truth, if that's possible. And the story itself that I wrote about, I took it to a much higher level than it actually was, but that was for literary license. It's not based in truth. It's a fictionalized story of a couple of incidents.
Okay. Beverly, will there be a follow-up book about Kim and Brad, or are you writing a completely different story now?
The next book that I have coming out is completely different. It's a series of interviews with a diverse group of very interesting women who are working in fields usually dominated by men, and how they struggle to overcome that kind of discrimination. I have a 2-time Emmy winner who was an original writer on Saturday Night Live, and she was told chicks aren't funny, and yet she's successful. A female jockey who had a ride under her initials to hide her gender, and yet she is a very successful jockey in races and in money earnings. I have a female rabbi who is bucking 5,000 years of tradition of male-only rabbis. So all of these women had to face some struggles, be better than the men in some cases, and they're just fascinating.
That's really great, and it sounds like a very interesting book. So, as the author of several books, but also an award-winning screenwriter, when you were a child, did you dream of one day being a successful writer?
No, I did write as a child. I had hoped to be a teacher, but I didn't start writing until after I retired. And I started with screenwriting. And once I won the Golden Palm Award for the best screenplay at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, doors opened up a little bit for me. So I continued writing screenplays. It was actually a producer who suggested that I convert one of my screenplays to a novel, and that was my first novel, Concrete Wings.
Wow.
And that was based on my husband's experience. So that is literary fiction, but again, based on or inspired by a true story.
You tend to write about strong women. What is it about women's stories that fascinate you so much that makes you want to write more and more about them?
I was born after World War II, and I found women were prevented in some ways from entering fields that they were perfectly capable of, including myself at times. And I think women need a stronger voice. We are celebrating 100 years of the vote, but they're still not equal in salary. Although we've come a long way, I don't think we're there yet. And I just thought women needed a voice. If I could do that through my writing, that's what I do.
Tell me, Beverly, is there a moral of the story in Soaring in Silence?
The moral of the story is don't judge people by their age or by their gender. If there's danger, there's danger. If there's intelligence, there's intelligence. I think we have to get rid of labels and be the best we can, the strongest we can, and when problems come up, learn how to resolve them.
That's about the best moral of the story I can think of. You're right. Resolution and no judgment. We could go a long way if we practiced that. So will you please read a short excerpt from Soaring in Silence for our listeners?
Our character, Kim, settles into a shuttle bus on the way to a doctor's appointment, and this is the first time she meets her stalker, Harry Gellis. Kim settles into the shuttle bus, magazine in hand. Harry Gellis, a large, bushy-haired man, cigarette in hand, enters. Kim feels his penetrating eyes on her. He flips the cigarette out the door, pulls up his collar, and wolf whistles. Kim has a feeling of dread. The shuttle is empty, yet he sits right next to her, too close. She feels his stale breath on her neck. Is he sniffing her? He's like an animal in heat. She hobbles to another seat. He leans in and says, "Hubba, hubba. Me, Harry. Who you?" She eyes the driver who's keeping watch over Kim. "Pretty name for a pretty lady. Where are you off to?" "Doctor's appointment." "Ha! I studied medicine 8 years. I still don't feel good." He grabs her magazine from her hands. "A writer? I'll give you great stories to write." She grabs the magazine. "I'm not looking for work." "Driver, how much further?" "Sit back, miss. We have a ways to go." Harry's demeanor changes. "Well, my wife died. No one to talk to. Everyone here is dead. Just nobody told them yet." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Perhaps you can move somewhere else." "Can't. I have a big job. Hundreds of people under me." "Oh, what do you do?" "I cut grass over at the cemetery." "Well, I'm glad you're having such a good time at my expense. Are you the onboard entertainment?" He flutters his eyebrows. "For you, cutie, 3 times a night." "Driver, how much further?" "Sit back. We have a ways to go." "Oh, don't be mad. I'll buy you dinner." "No, thank you. I'm a happily married woman." "Who cares?" "I do." The shuttle stops. "You're stopped, Mrs. Wolf." Kim is upset. Harry now has her name. She gathers her things and limps off the shuttle. Harry calls after her, "Hey, honey, just because there's no snow on the roof doesn't mean there's no fire in the furnace. See you soon, Mrs. Kim Wolf."
I love that last sentence. You're right, just because there's snow. Very, very good, Bev. So it is a little creepy. I mean, I can just imagine being there. You wrote that so well. So tell me, where can we learn more about you, books, and most of all, where can we purchase Soaring in Silence, One Woman's Triumph Over Fear?
The book is available on all major online retail stores, and my website, beverlygandara.com, will also give you a link to buy the book.
Beverly, will you spell out your website name, please?
BeverlyGandara.com.
Thank you. We've been talking with Beverly Gandara, author of Soaring in Silence. Beverly, I've enjoyed today every bit as much as I did when I talked with you the first time. Your story about Kim is fraught with suspense, and yet her strength just shouts from the pages. It's been a delight to talk with you again, and I hope you'll come back for a third time when you release your next book.
I would be delighted to do that, and thank you for a lovely interview.
The stalking by a disturbed man, no matter what his age, can happen to anyone. This vivid tale of such an event took place in a retirement community, not only to the main character, but to several other residents as well. It is timely, well-written, and complemented by another story of a woman's struggle to overcome adversity. That was a great review for Soaring in Silence, and I hope it's the incentive for you to go to beverlygandara.com and order your copy today. And please share this interview with your friends so that they too may become acquainted with our author. And remember that the Author Show may be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. Plus, selected interviews can also be found on major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and many more. Whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books, theauthorshow.com is a really great place to start.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.